Time to introduce our sofa guest today. Her name is Belinda Johnston, and if you're a dog owner, dog lover, well, animal lover, really, you'll want to listen to what she has to say. She's also the founder of Our Special Friends. It's quite a new organisation, and it specialises in all sorts of things, but mainly promoting the wonderful bond between a human and an animal. It also provides emotional support in the event of a bereavement, as well as the practical services for the elderly, vulnerable and socially isolated. Belinda, welcome to the sofa.
Thank you.
Tell us a bit about this. I'm going to say from the word go here, I'm not a dog owner. I love a dog, I love dogs, but I've never owned one. Is it quite difficult, if you've never owned a dog, to understand the depth of the bond you can form between a dog or any pet?
I think it is incredibly difficult for a lot of people to realise just how special this relationship can be, because what happens is that when they're a member of your family, they are very much a part of your friendship group, your companionship, and particularly when you're socially isolated, when you're on your own. If your partner has died, or if you don't have any children, you live on your own, and a huge number of people in our communities are socially isolated and lonely. And if they have a cat, a dog, a bird, if they have horses, whatever, those are living friends in their sphere with them there, and it makes such a difference.
I was talking a bit earlier to Ronnie, who's sitting in the mid-morning show. He said when his dog died, he was absolutely bowled for six at how much it affected him. And he said it affected him much more than it did his wife. And apparently, quite often men are more affected than women. Do you find that can bowl anyone for six?
I think we have to be incredibly open-minded and not assume how it's going to affect anyone. I mean, the main thing that I want to put across is what you see on the outside of somebody and what's going on in the inside can be hugely different. And yes, there are gender differences. There are differences between young and old circumstances in people's lives. But without a doubt, it can be overwhelming. And grief is very isolating. And people grieve before they actually lose an animal because they know that they're going to lose them, so they can be very, very upset.
Well, this is the thing, though. If you've got a dog, my in-laws have got a dog, and it's not on his last legs. He's an absolutely wonderful, as you say, an absolute member of the family, and they can see him getting a bit older and a bit older and a bit older, and they're already kind of building up to this, oh my God, we're not going to have him forever type thing. So you almost have to get that in place from...
Well, that's what we're wanting to do, because when I was a vet, I was very good at helping with end-of-life decisions. But in my work, training the veterinary profession and helping them in times when people are very upset, I've worked out that we're actually where people really need the help is in the community when they're not actually at the veterinary practice. Because it's very, very upsetting. There's something called anticipatory grief. And people don't realise that when they look at their older animal, when they look at their sick animal, when you know you're going to lose something, be it your job, your car, your license, when you're getting older, whatever it is in ill health, you are grieving then. And that is when people are on their own. So Our Special Friends is trying to help people in the community when they haven't got other support around.
Because, if you live on your own and you're isolated, you haven't got much family, a dog or, as you say, any pet is going to be an absolute lifeline for you. And then if you see that disappear, then, it, as you say, it's terribly isolating and devastating, I would have thought, if you already lost your partner.
Yeah. So what we do is, we do a number of things. If someone already has a pet and they're struggling because of mobility issues, ill health, or because life is just too challenging, then we'll come in and we'll see what their needs are and try and see if we can help in any way to maintain that relationship, because we realise the health and social benefits are massive.
I imagine walking is going to be the number one thing. If you're an elderly person, you're not physically able to take a big dog or any walk, really. Would you do dog walking as well, or could you hook people up with dog walkers?
We can hook people up with dog walkers, and volunteer dog walking does exist. There are some very good charities that help us along that line as well. Cinnamon Trust is excellent. What we do is volunteer dog walking, but actually the act of dog walking itself is very, very good for you, because you're walking, your animal becomes a social catalyst, you're meeting people gravitate towards somebody, you see people. So the act of walking and your mobility being maintained is very good. So there's lots of ways that, yes, definitely, if people are struggling with walking, we can help, but also maybe accompany them on a walk so that they're less nervous about going on the walk, so they still have the opportunity of going out. So we're maintaining animals in their environment, but also if someone has lost their dog and really wants to fill the void, and they're worried about taking on another pet, we can help by matching them up to other more appropriate older animals who desperately need homes. But I've had situations where people have taken on a new pet and it's been a completely inappropriate match. So we can help in the discussions and empower people so that they do feel comfortable with their new companion.
It's a unique charity in many ways, isn't it? Because you sort of, as you say, you've got the animal side of it and then there's the bereavement side. So it's social and emotional and practical all at the same time.
It's a very difficult concept to put across. I really appreciate Radio Suffolk giving me the opportunity. The difficulty is the breadth and depth is huge. But yes, we're looking at the very special human companion animal relationship because it is so important. And what we're trying to do is fill a void in the community care. There is a big void where people aren't being supported. And there's a charity called Pat Dogs, which does a fantastic job at taking animals to visit in hospitals and institutions, where we also visit, but we visit people in their own homes, because one of the other aspects is if someone is not able to have their own dog or cat or whatever, and they've been used to animal companionship, then what we can do is match them up with a local volunteer who has a companion animal themselves, a friendly dog, and they can do enhanced, befriending by popping in, say, once a week for an hour, once every 2 weeks. So the concept is very large and it's difficult to put across. But what we're trying to do is reduce social isolation, enhance befriending, and if what we can do is maintain an already existing companion, albeit a pet, and help with that, great. If we can't, then we will supply some animal companionship with the owner in tow.
How did you come across the idea for the organisation? Because your background is as a vet. Where do you see this sort of waning hole that needed to be filled?
Well, what the situation with me is I lost my mother when I was very young. I lost her when I was 10. And what we had dogs around. And one particular dog, hers, called Poppy, was a Jack Russell. And the fact that that dog was there for us was very important before and afterwards. And then my father remarried and we were in an environment where there were horses, dogs, puppies, you name it, lots of four-legged friends. I then went off to university, and in my second year, I always wanted to be a vet. That came into the equation. In my second year at university, I got a dog, I got a puppy, and that puppy enlightened all the students' lives. She was much loved. She was borrowed all the time for walks. She was taken out and about, and she was with me for my student life and into my working life. And people in London, where I had a practice, used to stop me and say, "Where do you work? Where can you possibly be taking this dog?" And she was with me until our first child. And she helped what I haven't also mentioned is that my father died whilst I was at university. And the fact that I had a companion animal, this very special friend, which is where this comes from, there for me, so I got up, I sort of met people. She kept me sane. And I really appreciate that for many people, their whole well-being, their mental health and their physical health is kept going by having a companion to get up for.
So explain that to someone. You're 10 years old. The most worst thing that can happen, your mum dies. You're absolutely devastated. But what the dog then was, what you could just, it was this the comfort, the solace, just having something to cuddle or.
Well, what happens? Well, I mean, someone who rang me, a lady rang me and she said, my husband died 2 years ago and our dog has just died 2 months ago. And she said, that dog was our dog. And now I need to fill the void. That when I was younger, the fact that Poppy was still around was, she had loved my mother had loved her. And it was continuity, consistency, which I think is important. And animals help with any kind of heart conditions. And you don't ring your GP so much. You don't visit your doctor so much. You're much healthier. And I think when it comes to grief, animals can really, really help and support you when you are grieving any loss.
Do they know what's going on? Would you say your dog knew that you were very unhappy and it had to, cheer you up?
Animals, without a doubt, empathise. They're non-judgmental. They show unconditional love. They have no idea what you look like, how you're being. But, they do genuinely, they're there for you in so many different ways.
I tell you what, I want a dog now. Do you think everyone should have a dog?
No, this is not for everybody. People are allergic and phobic. This is really not for everybody. But the people who have had this sort of relationship, what people call the human companion animal bond, will know how important it is and how devastating it can be. But it's not devastating for everybody. Everyone is individual.
Well, as you say, I mean, you give some very practical and essential advice. You've got something on your website, which is a thing called Coping with the Death of Your Dog, which gives some very practical advice, how to do, who to notify, what to do, and what you should expect. Again, good advice in that. Were you involved in writing that one?
No, wasn't involved in writing that one. And what I tend to do, what we want our special friends to do is to work alongside collaboratively with local organisations to support. We're not going to be in isolation. We're part of a jigsaw. We are a piece doing joined up thinking with other organisations. So I'm a specialist service provider to St Nicholas Hospice Care. So we've been working alongside with them. Age UK, lots of different organisations. We've had referrals from doctors and vets. We work alongside all the different health and social support structures and family and friends of the people who are involved.
What kind of changes have you seen in someone when you've introduced them to a dog, or in a hospice scenario, or when you've taken a dog to visit? Have you seen a real change in people? Absolutely.
We've been called into several cases where people aren't coping. Within the first visit, second visit, you can just see their eyes light up, and just the sheer uplifting aspect. And with people who are coping with dementia, both the carers find that it really does help to have just that sort of respite. And it's, if you do like animals, there's nothing more joyous than having an animal look at you and say, I'm here for you.
Our sofa guest today is Belinda Johnston. She's a vet and the founder of Our Special Friends. It's an organisation which specialises in that wonderful bond between a human and an animal. It provides emotional support in the event of a bereavement, as well as practical services for the elderly, vulnerable and socially isolated. We were just saying there off air, Belinda, it's human welfare you specialise in more than dog welfare, because everything you do is all around making people feel better, isn't it?
Yes, and it's because, well, we're looking at the equation, at the relationship, but if I'm involved in the human aspect of it, because bereavement is bereavement. It's when you lose anything, it's important and it has an impact on people. But what we found is when we go and visit, say, I've just been visiting today, this lady, and when I go in, it's her. She doesn't have a pet, but she had a dog ages ago. And when we talk about the dog that she used to have, and then I pop out and put some bird seed on her bird table. And just what I'm there for is to enrich and facilitate her well-being, because she was getting really depressed and lonely. But Rolo, the terrier, coming in and saying hi makes a really big difference to her. So yes, although I'm a vet, it is a bit confusing that I have always been interested in the relationship. And when I had a practice in London, it was the client's perspective that I was very, very aware of, because I had been bereaved myself. And so I was able to empathise and have a bit of an understanding of how difficult it can be.
Because you also work for Cruise, don't you? Which is the bereavement. Do you? Sorry.
Well, Cruise, CRUSE, the human bereavement charity. I was a volunteer a while ago around the Newmarket and Bury area, when you actually go in and visit people following the death of a human companion. Yes, that was something that I have volunteered in the past. And that, for me, bereavement, the fact that pet bereavement, equine bereavement, losing horses is very devastating. Any companion, be it human or animal, it does have a big impact on people. So
let's rewind a little bit. You lost your mum when you were 10, which probably, so you're used to bereavement. But then you went on to do very well academically, didn't you?
Yes.
To study, you did very well. Tell us about your school days. Were you academic from the word go with her?
I was very lucky. I was that grotty little person who kept on getting the prizes. But no, I've been very lucky in my academic career, and I went on to Cambridge Vet School and studied veterinary.
Was there a time when you knew you wanted to be a vet? Did that mean you said you grew up around animals and things? Was there a time when you thought, right, this is what I want to do?
Yes, funny enough, I can pinpoint it exactly. I was 11. And what that has got to do with Mum, I don't know, but I imagine it's got a lot, because I was aware that, there was a need for care, for palliative care. But I do remember one instance, and it sounds so crazy that I can focus on it, but there was a bird in the garden that had broken its neck. And I remembered that helplessness of holding this creature that I wanted to help, but I couldn't do anything. And though I know that from 11, I was very, very keen to be a vet, it satisfied my academic curiosity, but also helping. People want to be nurtured and looked after and loved and everything, and animals did that for us. And so I wanted to be there to try and heal.
Are you still a vet in practice, or are you still have a practice or not?
No, I had one in London, and then I got married to a horse vet and moved up to Suffolk. And at that point in time, no one really wanted the sort of vet that I was, which is someone really keen on supporting. Don't get me wrong, vets do love people as well. But I was very, very client focused. So what I went into is emotional support. So I've been doing lectures and workshops for the veterinary profession and other professionals on this aspect of grief. And because compassionate communication is a difficult subject, and I wanted people to be aware that when someone walks in your door with a companion animal, with a pet, and they're having to make difficult decisions, that actually they do need compassionate support.
Because you would think vets would be a bit like, mind you, doctors aren't necessarily particularly good at sort of bedside manner. That delivering bad news, they would be very empathetic, the vet, because they love animals, but that's not always your experience.
Well, I think that the difficulty is that bedside manner is something that is difficult to teach, but compassionate communication you can teach. But there are useful helplines. There's a fantastic pet bereavement helpline run by the Blue Cross. It was initiated by a charity called SCAS. And what I've been doing is signposting veterinary practices to let people know about the resources that are already there. And that's what our Special Friends is also doing. We are signposting people to helplines that already exist. So we're not wanting to reinvent the wheel. We're wanting to signpost people, help people. And by doing it, because I was a vet in London and I had a lot of people around me who were very responsive to the way that I helped them in end-of-life euthanasia decisions, I'm aware that actually to have support before and after, like the hospice gives, is equally important. And I kept on asking vets in my workshops to perhaps provide more community support. And then I realised that actually that's not their remit. They're there to do the clinical work, and they're there to support while people are under their care in the veterinary practice and beyond, in the home. But in the community, there are masses and masses of difficult decisions that people are coming to on their own.
I understand it after the event, but what do you mean in the run-up to the event, the support to give before it happens?
Well, this goes back, and this is the difficulty slightly with this subject, is this goes back to the fact that a grief, you grieve before the loss. So this is what it is difficult to say, is that when people walk in and they have made a decision that perhaps the timing is right to put an animal down, they have been grieving on their own. So a lot of people I've been talking to say, "Oh, I wish I'd known about you before," or "when we had our dog put down," and they talk about it in the past. But what we can do is help with advanced care planning. We can help them to talk about what their wishes might be, what they want, do they want to for the euthanasia to occur at home? Do they want to bury their animal? All the different options which you can do when you're less emotional.
I suppose the big question then is, do you replace a dog or with another animal? I suppose that depends in different cases, isn't it?
It totally depends on different cases, and you can never replace the relationship that you've had. But what you can do is fill the void, if that's what you want, with another companion animal. It's a very, very broad subject, and I think we're touching on it, but I appreciate this might be actually raising a lot of questions for people.
Have you got lots and lots of dogs at home? Imagine you're going to go home and there's going to be a horse in the kitchen, a couple of dogs on the sofa, you're full of animals. Is that your home life?
Our home life is, we've got 3 dogs, a golden Labrador who was a rehome. He's divine. We've got a black Cocker Spaniel who is just mad. And we've got a wonderful terrier who I take on visits, and he just is such a character. Yes, so 3 dogs, 2 cats. We had horses, and we don't have horses anymore, but we're very lucky. We live in rural Suffolk. But there are lots of people who, the other aspect of this is the masses of people who used to have an animal but now can't because of work. They are people who can go out and maybe walk the dog for somebody who is finding life very tricky because of mobility. What we're trying to do is we want to enhance people's life and well-being by putting local people together, local volunteers who can help local vulnerable people. And so it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, sounds very good. And finance-wise, is it charity or you rely on donations or?
We are a very young charity. Yes, we're HMRC recognised at the moment as a charitable organisation. So what we've been relying on is private donations, and a trust gave us some money last year. We've been going for a year and a bit. My bereavement work has been going on for longer, my training. So what we're looking for is any support that people can give us. Obviously, fundraising is vital for this kind of organisation to become sustainable. We're also looking for volunteers, whether they have animals or not. Actually, what we want are people to come forward, and we have a website which is www.ourspecialfriends.com. And what we're doing is we're wanting to bring together a force and action of people so that we can actually help reduce social isolation and create sort of a community where vulnerable people are being watched over.
It's a great idea. If you're listening to this and you know you're about to have to make some difficult decisions when it comes to your dog's life, or as you say, a companion pet animal's life, how would they get in contact with you? They would just give you a ring, or?
Well, we've got, a telephone number 01284 810 220. There's a mobile 07770 855 303. Email belinda@ourspecialfriends.com. We are very young. We cannot guarantee an instant response, but little acorns, we're sowing seeds. It's from what I can see in the cases that are coming forward. We're working alongside vets, doctors, social and health workers. We are finding that there is a real need.
Yeah. Any plans to make it bigger, to take it nationally or something like that?
I think there's a national need, but we're Suffolk based at the moment. I think that working alongside and working, it's a multidisciplinary type of situation, collaborating with different organisations. We can't possibly do it on our own, but what we want to do is other organisations to be aware of just how important this support is. And the support is there in the local community. There are people in the community with pets, and there are people in the community who need support. Yeah. It's just a matching up service.
It is a wonderful idea. We also had a hello from Norman Gooding in Wiverstone and his dog Shadow. He's registered with you as a friendly dog, apparently.
Yes, he is.
Do you know Shadow?
Yes, I do.
Good. Belinda, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for coming in. And that website again is www.ourspecialfriends.com.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Good luck with the rest of your work as well.
Thank you.